today's news. Nothing to hear, nothing to see. All is well with democracy, and the good guys are in charge. Our lead story of the evening involves an incident in South Boston, where...
Not attempt to adjust your equipment. We are in control. This is Sinister Mysteries. Tonight, we bring you another disturbing case from our files.
Enjoy the rest of the broadcast.
All right, Puppet Cronkite, thank you. No,
What's
actually, he's not Crumpet. He's not Crumpet. He's Crumpet. I guess his name's Crumpet. No, it's Mount Crumpet, and I don't know. Sometimes it's a pain in the ass being a creative.
Oh, we could always come. Yeah, that's the thing. Help us come up with a name for the puppet.
Yeah, help us come up with a name for the puppet.
Yeah, what's his name?
Yeah, what is that guy's name? What's it? Huh? I don't know what that means. Craig, do you know what that means? What King said? Is that a code name? Anyway,
I'm not sure. Yep,
radio.
I'm not sure.
Radio, Radio, Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. EST. You see either Into the Outer Realms Revisited or Craig and Joey's Sinister Mysteries Encore Edition. So there you go. So interesting. This is interesting. 64 episodes in to this kind of takes you. Well, this takes you into the future. And we've done transhumanism. We've done other things that are future looking. In process, in some ways, I think that if you take everything that's going on, all these scattered, but there was a flurry of more executive orders yesterday. I think there was another 3. The courts are doing something. If you lay sort of this Dark Enlightenment, which goes by many names, which we'll share with you, and I have a thought about that too, Craig. So many names for this thing. It starts to make sense. It starts to kind of gather and it starts to get shape, almost like pointillism. The painters, if you get a little distance on it, you look it through the lens of this, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's way far out. I think most of the 7 steps that they're working on have not been achieved. But probably at least, Craig, I would say probably at least 5 of the 7 steps are in process. Like demonstrably. You can go XYZ is happening. Hi, Lori. Hi, Maggie. Thanks for joining. I'm gonna do the how I kind of have it split, Craig, is the philosophy, the players, and then the process. But it goes by so many different names. This is interesting. So, Craig, you're using a research assistant. I've been using a research assistant. I use ChatGPT as a first start. It's kind of gotten to know me. I get some stuff and then I go from there and I build over days and hours from that. When I asked ChatGPT to tell me, we're originally going to call this Butterfly Revolution, and you can see that butterfly down. They told me there was no such thing. So I said to them, no, there is such a thing. And here's the guy. And it's like, yeah, there's no demonstrable evidence of this. So congratulations. You could be actually on the cutting edge of coming up with a name to tie together all these disparate things, that just shows you the BS level of these large language models. I'm going to stop calling them even artificial intelligence, but you had no such problem.
No,
so the audience.
I started probably maybe a month and a half ago. I started using Grok 3, which is it's a beta thing on X, and this is a tool that Musk they developed, through their AI project, and this one doesn't seem to have the gatekeeping problem that some of the other AI products have. This one simply goes, and the way I like it is like it'll start with, here's what you're looking for, here's analysis. It goes through the whole thing. Would you like to know? It's kind of almost like the Starship Troopers. Do you want to know more? And then you can type in if you want to know more. Like I told Joey, I go, it's really great. It's almost that person. The reason why I started using this is I don't use this verbatim. What this does now is this gives you all the details. So like if you look at this, it tells you the web pages, posts that it finds stuff from, so you can go directly to these web pages. You can click the link on the top and it will take you directly to a web page. And so now you can get direct source material, like where this is coming from. So if you
GPT
question like
too. And I think it's interesting because Sam Altman, the guy behind OpenAI, ChatGPT, is sort of a minor player in this thing, where Musk is like sort of a major player in this thing.
Yeah.
So they want to get the word out, of course, through there. And of course, X will be a major tool in this whole architecture. So here are the names, folks. You're going to want to keep up with this. If anybody wants an outline, send them an outline. I got all the names, all the players, just, private message, best way to do it. But so the Dark Enlightenment. So the Dark Enlightenment was coined by a philosopher called Nick Land, although it was popularized by this guy, Curtis Yarvin. And there's Curtis's head at the top of the thing here. Curtis,
under a pen name.
Curtis is a little kooky. Yeah, he goes by Mencius Moldbug. Who does that remind you of? Musk is always changing. Musk is changing his name. So he writes this essay called The Butterfly Revolution in a 2022 Gray Mirror Substack essay. So 2022, keep in mind, work backwards. It's about midway through the heavy Heritage Foundation and Steve Bannon planning for when we get in the White House, and that's the way they felt.
Mm-hmm.
When we get in the White House, this is what we're going to start doing, boots on the ground. It also has other names, an array of other names. So the Dark Enlightenment, of course, the Butterfly Revolution. We'll talk about why it's called that. Craig, I have a sort of secondary just because of someone that Tanya and I used to promote. But so it's also called the neo-reactionary movement, or NRX. So, that could be a new prescription, NRX. They love X. Mm-hmm. All these guys love X. Replacing liberal democracies with technocratic corporate style governance. That's going to be the theme tonight. That is their feeling, to replace liberal democracies with technocratic corporate style governance. And I have all of the major players, there's probably 8 or 9, with quotes from some and how they are involved and why they are involved, why they bought into this. So old Mencius Moldbug writes this essay. And of course, if you guys know the butterfly effect, if a butterfly flaps its wings in Peking, there's a storm halfway across the world. So the extraction of it is little things cause big things. Craig, before I turn it over to you, there's a woman named Barbara Marx Hubbard. She was a futurist. She was a very well-known futurist. Well, back in 2012, she was doing a lot of stuff, but she was using the butterfly metaphor. Caterpillars have these information disks while they're in chrysalis, then they're reborn. I think it's a hearkening back to there. Craig, I have not quite figured out where the transhumanists are in all of this. So the the Yuval Hararis, the guys who sort of sit with the World Economic Forum, but there is overlap. And Frank Jacobs, who you've had on your show, I follow Frank's work closely. He came out about a year ago, got some pushback on it, but he named Barbara Marx Hubbard as kind of crossing that line into transhumanism before she died in 2019. So I'll turn it over to you before we get into the.
I was just thinking about that transhumanism. I think, for me, I think a lot of it is just where they coincide with this one is because the butterfly revolution just deals so heavily with, the tech side.
Yeah.
And so, that's where, for me, I would say that's where a lot of the overlap between the two would really start to take places. Because from what I got from, especially like his thing, is just that it's it's kind of weird. I mean, I almost took like the Dark Enlightenment as one is where, you know, it's kind of like a play on words, you know, like it was like you're going into the recesses, but at the same time you're supposedly like enlightening yourself. So it's almost like the digital download, which would be the transhumanism thing, which would coincide with that, to where this would be as the tech becomes pretty much. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but basically tech becomes God. It basically becomes the religion, you know, the tech,
Now,
you know,
that
yeah, and
that
that's
that
yeah.
is
Go ahead.
transhumanism. That's
Mhm.
homo deus. Man becomes God. We no longer need religion. I'm not seeing that like jumping out at me at this, nor are they talking about humans melding with technology. Of course, Musk is Neuralink, so there is that,
Yeah.
but I don't see that anywhere in this architecture.
No, I think this is like a framework. It's like you can see like an ultimate goal, but it's like when you're looking at it, it's not one where man will download themselves and this will become that. It's just like with transhumanism, that's pretty much it. It's like man becomes one with machine,
Yeah.
and this one is a techno monarchy, which is, you know, basically government becomes so dependent upon the tech sector. You know, it's like that becomes one. And so this, you could see where the two at that point would merge. You would have the people that would basically plug themselves in. And I mean, I guess in a way you could almost say this is the framework for the Matrix.
Yeah. Well, yes, and that's why Curtis Yarvin is not really the face of this. There's another guy, Srinivazan, who is actually the face of it, because he was so freaking radical and kooky and said such crazy stuff. Joe said,
Yeah,
felt
Chris.
that it absolutely does mirror the Enlightenment movement. It's a pushback against it. It's like, oh, Rousseau and Locke and all those guys, and all this talk of democracy and all that nonsense has really hurt things. And we need an oligarchical, highly managed, highly concentrated, because people don't know what they're doing. Like,
yeah, Chris. Yeah, hang on. We'll get you there. This is kind of like we just laid out what quantum mechanics is.
That's my brother. That's my brother.
We just told you, we just basically gave you, we just gave you a very broad idea of what quantum mechanics is, and that's what this is. So we'll get into this one. This one is definitely this one's a ride.
Yeah. So King, right? All those points are salient. Kardashians posing with robots. All of these things, small brain, micro, all of that. We're gonna. This is exactly like Craig said. This is the framework, and it starts with a larva phase. Let's get into this. They also call themselves the tech messiahs. They also call it tech Zionism, which is interesting. And again, it's the idea of these digital frontiers or sovereign enclaves for the elite. Like, they make no bones about that. Like, your average person is dumb as a stump. When they pick leaders, they inevitably screw up, and AI is going to assist these tech elites, this group of, you can call them a council of 12 or 15. Well, the cathedral is everything they fight against. So that would include religion, that would include education, that would include, all the things that are part of the framework. So the larva phase is to create an alternate regime. They've done that. It's what I call the SilVal boys. You call them the global elite. They've already done that. They've set themselves up as messiahs. And the larva phase, though, you're harmless as a caterpillar. And Craig, I have to say, I was really thinking about it today. As vocal as these guys are, right? Last week, I texted a bunch of colleagues because I'm working in the industry more and more, right? The entertainment industry. And Jack Dorsey is calling for the end of all IP and all copyright. So they're saying really kind of outrageous things, but I don't see a pushback. So they kind of are sort of seen by a lot of people as harmless. Or folks like my brother, just they're making a living, they're taking care of their family, their grandparents, and they don't have time to really look at this stuff, which is part of the reason why I feel compelled to do these shows.
Well, wouldn't with Dorsey, wouldn't that fall under kind of like what Yarvin argues, where that's what he dubs the cathedral as the unelected elite. And so, and that's where with that one, like I was looking at, because that's the media, academia, institutions. And
Right.
so like with Dorsey opening up, kind of like how Musk has done that too, where he doesn't gatekeep. He's basically, here's this, make the better mousetrap. Here, take this thing. And Dorsey kind of did that one, because now the whole object, especially like how I understand, like basically his point is that basically the power of modern democracy does not lie through elections. It lies through allegiances to basically the gods of media, the elites that run your media. So if you make access to where you and me could come up with a social media site, come up with this AI project, come up with these things, all we're doing is we're feeding into the beast that is being built, which is this revolution, this Dark Enlightenment. We're just helping this process along willingly instead of fighting it. We're basically like, oh hell, man, we can make some money off the Sinister Mysteries AI, program. Hell, let's do this. And all we're doing is we're just adding to the process, because it only helps. It's one of those, through more information. It's kind of like the transhumanism. This is the same thing. If we all plug in, all of us become living, breathing mainframes. We become a gigantic server farm. We can access all this brain power, and that's kind of what this is. I feel like that's with Dorsey. That's what he's doing. He's basically like throwing the treats out there and just seeing who's gonna bite and come in too.
Yeah, and it's really actually amazing who's going, yeah, maybe the time for copyright and IP and all this stuff are gone. So the architect of this thing, this Mencius mold bug, is this guy Curtis Yarvin, Curtis Yarvin, a computer scientist, political theorist, founder of the neo-reactionary movement. Developed the Urbit computing platform, in which Peter Thiel was a heavy investor. And he's known as Thiel's in-house philosopher, Lord Yarvin the Prophet, because these guys, like, they're living in some kind of dystopian movie, right? That's how they see themselves. So Lord Yarvin the Prophet. If you watch interviews with Yarvin and his frontman Srinivasan, they rub their, they're literally stimulating their, like Yuval Harari looks like slightly like Skeletor. These guys are really, really interesting. Of course, Vance is very influenced by this. I'm going to get that out of the way up front, because of course he's a Thiel boy. He's a former Thiel venture capitalist. Thiel set a record getting J.D. Vance elected in Ohio, to move him then to the White House. Vivaswamy, who, Craig, you don't hear almost a peep from Vivaswamy now. He's trying to become governor of Ohio.
I think that's why is because right now he did his legwork. He kind of got the ball rolling with this thing, and now he's kind of, this is the reward. Yeah. Now he can go here, establish himself there, do what he can at Ohio. If he does good, then he's just padding the resume to then do it again. And then you could say, when somebody says like, what, that was a criticism, what experience does he have? Now he can be like, what do you think?
Oh yeah.
What do you think of Ohio? And then you basically, you're springboarding yourself.
And it's weird. I've learned a lot about Ohio politics, studying the post-Civil War. So a lot of really powerful generals came out, but like so many of the presidents, vice presidents, so on and so forth, through the turn of the century came from Ohio. So and there is a guy, I forget his name, but he basically he's the kingmaker of Ohio. So yeah, so that's what's going on there. So Curtis Yarvin also, he came up with this idea of patchwork. Patchwork is tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of mini countries governed by a joint stock corporation. To bleed this down, it's basically like corporate run, which again, Craig, is like so many dystopian sci-fi movies, right? In some ways, it's George Orwell's Big Brother. There's a terrific movie with and of course I'm forgetting the name, which sucks, but with Christian Bale, very dystopian, this kind of thing, the Big Brother kind of thing. But Yarvin got into trouble the same way that the guy from Oxford University, who was part of the whole transhumanism movement, got into trouble because he's talking eugenics and he's talking racism. Well, same thing with Curtis Yarvin. In a series of public statements and things, he's suggesting the need for racial hierarchies, or that they exist, and also questioning civil rights advancements. Craig, I think that these guys, I don't want to call them geniuses. They see the world in a certain way, where homo deus, right? We don't need religion. Science is the God. Man melds with science, and man becomes the new God. Racial hierarchy, eugenics, well, that's just the way of it. Some races are superior to other races, and that got him in trouble, and they had to pull him back. He also said stuff like, really useless people, we can use them for food. And the poor, we could just lock into VR prisons. That's the Matrix, my man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that goes into, everything, like that goes into all the stuff like the UN agendas, where eventually, that's one of those where, Charlton Heston, Soylent Green is people. Like you said, it's a lot of these things keep pointing to the same thing, where that was that one of the words, the egalitarianism. That was an awesome word. For anybody that doesn't know what that means, it's a political philosophy that everybody is equal, and that's that's the easiest way to, all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities, and it's one of those. I think in a lot of this one, like where I got from that too, is this one. It's kind of always been that there's the camp that believes everybody's equal, everybody deserves the same things, the same stuff. But just like in life, it's like, especially one of the things that made the country so great was it gave everybody the opportunity to succeed. But when you start to guarantee people outcomes, that's when it always falls apart.
Yeah. And
so that's where part of this, the anti-egalitarian, see if I can get that word out. That's where part of this movie is, where it's like, this is, you're going to have stuff, but it's not going to be equal opportunity. This goes towards the elites. The elites have the power.
I didn't lose you, right?
Nope, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just want to, before I, there it is. Okay, good. Oh yeah, George Orwell's Animal Farm. That's right. So that comes under their philosophy is all men are created equal, but some men are more equal than others.
Yeah,
that's that hierarchy. So no. This is why I say, folks, this will help you organize the dots on the map. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. They simply do not believe it. They simply do not believe it. That's just the story. They don't believe it. And they have billions of dollars, and they bought their way into everything. It's amazing, Craig, how many people are out there just to say, you got to adopt AI. You got to adopt AI. One of Trump's executive orders was AI in the schools. Got to train high school kids in AI. I'm thinking of writing an essay called, adopting AI is not a moral imperative. It's like, you're an idiot. There's something wrong with you if you don't fully embrace AI, predictive AI, super AI.
Yeah, I helped my son with a project on that one. It's for schools. He had to do an essay, and that's one of the ones we did, is the use of AI in schools. And realistically, I know there's a lot of people that have the different things, but especially like this, I'll even do the prediction right now. We're probably less than 3 years away from, artificial general intelligence becoming a thing, to where it will be on par with us. And after that, we're probably not too much further before super intelligence hits, at which point that AI program will be better than all of us combined.
That's where I disagree with you. A lot of computer scientists and some of the people in the audience know these guys are saying that's a total lie. we're maybe
Yeah.
100 years out of that.
Yeah, because they've
and I'm kind of
yeah.
counting on that. So
Yeah, I think so, and that's one of those, because if this happens, and that's where this kind of thing, and that's where with that paper where I was going with that is that's why I think it's one of those. We're kind of at that point. This is like the people that were fighting against automobiles. No, I'm not
Right.
giving up my horse.
Right.
And this is what's going to happen with AI. It's like whether writers like yourself, creators like yourself, if you don't learn how to use these tools and embrace these tools and use these tools to help you create your stuff, to do these things, it's going to get to the point to where there's going to be no way to differentiate, and a lot of those people, you'll get left behind. You'll be the same way with
guaranteed not in my
the
lifetime, Craig.
the buggy and the whip, industries will be gone.
Yeah, except that the automobile was, it was some pieces to put together. We'll see. I mean, that's what I say to my colleagues who say what you're saying right now. There will always people who will crave. I said to somebody the other day, being human, really being human could be the greatest act of rebellion in the future, which is like some of those movies, those dystopian movies. I will not do it. I just will not do it. I will not adopt it. And I think there will always be a market, even if it's a novelty, even if they go, oh, this was created by humans, like for humans, it'll be a novelty, but not everybody's gonna adopt it.
No, it's, and that's kind of, which is cool, and that's why I said that's where I'm on the thing that we're on the precipice of the singularity. I mean, it's gonna hit.
Yeah, and I disagree with that, so we'll see.
Yeah, because I'm that thing with the super intelligence. I'm that way. It's just because I had this discussion with somebody. I liken it to like a young child. The potential's there. We program it, by telling it, teaching it how to walk, how to talk, how to function, these things. But at some point, we no longer have control over that system.
Right.
That system.
So why would you do that? That's insanity.
Well, and that's what there are people that are building that. That's their goal is creating that infant, and that's why I said it's like these ones like ChatGPT. I don't think it's going to get there, but there are ones that are in the works where because we've all heard the stories of ones where they've had to shut it down because they got out of control, and it started to freak them out. And I think that's where we're at. We're at that point. We have the infant kid right now that's really reliant upon us, and that's we're at this precipice where this could be the type of thing. If we have this, then something like this butterfly revolution will happen overnight. I mean, it's just going to go pow. That'll be it.
Yeah, that's it. So I say smother it while it's an infant. That's what I say. Because it's insensible. It's insensible. And these guys named the Dark Enlightenment like tech is going to be your savior. But I would say Albert Einstein was the one who said you cannot fix problems using what created the problems.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. And it's just like we were talking about with this one. It's so easy to go this way because of the upside is so enticing. It's like right now, it's like these programs, all we do is we can just pipe in this, we can do our homework. And you get the answers, boom, boom, boom. And eventually, like I said, that's when the creation, the servant becomes the master, just like that. And that's where I think, like I said,
no, finish your thought. But
no, that's where I think, because right now I would agree that I think currently that, like I said, we're at the end of the larval stage in his thing. I think that's where it's like this one. We're getting ready to, because that's when, like I said, I'm probably about the right time. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I think this is where we're coming into the I think, what did he call this? Was it the imago? Is that or image stage? I'm trying to remember.
The imago stage. Yeah.
The imago stage. This is where becomes the seizing of power. Yeah. And that's where I think that's where we're coming into, because we saw it I think we're really seeing a lot of it through tech, like you said, in this current administration, but we saw a lot of this happening in the previous administration too, where these things really started started taking hold and being used. Where the tech giants and stuff were highly being sought after, in wined and dined by all political parties, because they saw the potential. If we could just get Zuckerberg, Dorsey, if we could just get these guys on our side, they're over there wringing their hands, and that's what it is. They're doing that, the larval stage. Well, now we're in that part where now those players have been put into positions to where now they can do stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're saying.
Yeah. It's not the alternate regime, it's the regime. So the front man for this thing is Balaji Srinivasan, former Coinbase chief technical officer, author of The Network State, How to Start Your Own Country, a roadmap for replacing nation states with cloud-based sovereign communities. The nation state is losing power, he says. The network state is rising. That's Skynet, all that kind of stuff that people like to bring up. Society's governed not by shared society's governed by shared values, not democratic consensus. So the problem is who decides those shared values? It's these 12 or 15 guys now who are squarely in power. And what got them there? This technology. So of course they're going to adopt it. Of course they're going to love it. Another piece of their philosophy is neo-cameralism. Government should operate like corporations. So you put a guy like Trump in power. With the CEO-like figure at the helm, you put Trump in power. Prioritizing efficiency, Doge, in order over egalitarian principles. So there's your word, Craig. Egalitarian principles. It doesn't work. I have now, I think before we go into the architecture, I'd like to go through the guys who are at the core of this, if that's cool with you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because thinkers don't have a lot of money. Philosophers, the prophets, don't have a lot of money. But the guys who are behind it do. So
that's how it always is, too.
Oh,
It's always, the ones that have been behind any revolution have always been the charismatic. The point, like I said, yes, they may have some money, they may have some influence like this, but they've always been that charismatic one. It doesn't matter who it is, Marx, just Mao. I mean, just all these ones, just they in themselves weren't super wealthy, but they were Castro. I mean, you could go through anything. They were these, these ones, and they were able to, bring this populace with them, overthrow the existing, establishment. And that's kind of where this is. It's like, because that's one of the things, and as you get into players, you'll see, because you have to have a charismatic person to bring this over the finish line.
Oh, yeah.
Or it doesn't work.
Yeah. And I think J.D. Vance has sort of been picked for their guy. I think they hoped that Elon, 10, 12 years ago, people thought Elon Musk was like the shit. Like smoking weed, inventing electric cars, wants to go to the Mars. I don't think since Trump's election that Mike Myers' portrayal of him on SNL has done him any favors.
No, it's one of those. I think we're still, and this is kind of it was a great point that you brought that up too, is because this is the problem with this butterfly revolution as well. Is it's such a fragile thing that it almost has to be bred in the perfect scenario.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. We're still in such a polarized political thing to where, we're, like I said, with Musk, it's like, here's a guy that was the darling of, the left. I mean, this was, he was coming out with the green technology that's going to save the planet. And what's happening now? They're burning those same cars, torching them. And it's one of those, nothing's changed. It's still the same vehicle that was saving the planet. But now, because that person's no longer ideologically aligned with that side, it is of the devil.
Yeah.
Bobby Boucher, you're playing the foosball. You've got to take this out. And that's one of those things where, especially with this enlightenment thing, if you don't have all the pieces right, it can't happen yet. So I think that's where we haven't gotten past, we're still in that is in the imago stage. Like I said, we can't get past it because right now we're just too far. There's too much of a divide.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for us to get to the actual architecture. This way we can go point by point and go exactly where it is. So I'll get through these guys. Yeah, Charles, I don't think it's charisma, but it's a sort of a powerful intelligence. JD Vance, he has a certain thing about him. I mean, he, you know, I'm basing that on other people in the reaction, but this guy travels all around the world. One of the last people the Pope saw when he was alive, he was dying on Easter, and he saw JD Vance. I don't think we can dismiss that. Vance sitting in on those meetings, like with and doing so much of the talking during Zelensky's visit. He's not
a sidekick puppet. Yeah, he's not a sidekick puppet in any way.
No, and even amongst very powerful VPs like Dick Cheney, this is next level. This guy travels. This guy speaks for the United States. Yeah.
Dick Cheney was in the shadows. Vance is in the forefront.
Yeah.
There's no shadows. He is, boom, right there.
Yeah. Let's see here. We're getting a lot of good comments here. I think there will be an act 2 involving Vance and Vivek a few years from now. Yeah, I'm wondering how that would go. I assume Vivek plays governor for a little while. Trump at his age, I don't think he does another term, even if, I think he's sort of, no. He's done his thing. JD, they think, but it's still a democracy. So you see what happens. And then Vivek would be his VP, and then Vivek would go on. And that's quite a lot of years if they got his way.
They would have to have amendment change in order for him to have another term.
And his age, it's not going to
happen.
And Craig, I kind of see him sort of as a middleman, where JD Vance as president would just be the direct, he's their boy. He grew up with Peter Thiel. He and Vivek were roommates at law school, at Yale. Yeah. They went to Yale together. So it would just be a lot cleaner. This is my writer's mind, looking at character architecture. So I'm going to go through these guys real quick, dude, so we can get to the, Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and Palantir. We've done whole shows on these guys. I'm going to go quick. Venture capitalist, libertarian, techno-utopian ideas. Also famously says competition is for losers. All men are created equal. Some are more equal than others. Get rid of competition. Get rid of it. It's for losers. I got the best product. That harkens back, Craig, in so many ways to JP Morgan, right? A kingmaker, all that kind of stuff. And putting yourself in their mind, why wouldn't you? Right? They're like, we're the billionaires. We have the power. We're the future. We have created the stuff that's going to appreciably change the world and solve all its problems. Like, they have this tech messiah thing. So,
and he funded Yarvin's Urbit program too.
Yeah.
So that's
he supports initiatives that challenge traditional governance structures. Of course, Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, Doge, minimal government intervention, promotes techno-optimism, publicly acknowledged the influence of Yarvin's ideas on his political thinking. This is where another name for all of this, Craig, and there's a woman who did a great video and called it Dark Gothic MAGA. That's him with his, not the red hat with the white letters, but the black hat, the black suit, the black t-shirt with that's the dark Gothic MAGA. Jack Dorsey, of course, Elon Musk, they co-founded, but he did Twitter. It recently came out that he probably invented Bitcoin. Of course, these digital currencies are a huge part of these digital governments, these digital city states. Dorsey criticizes centralized control and legacy systems and decentralized protocols. And I talked about the copyright AP. Dorsey says this: if there's one thing to focus on, it's censorship-resistant global monetary protocols. Remember, Craig, when it looked like Trump was going to win and he picked Vance, all of SilVal went, now we're going to be unfettered. Now progress can really be rampant because they're not, so that's all of this here. Decentralized social media, Blue Sky. Blue Sky is, I don't see it making a lot of progress, and Dorsey walked away from Blue Sky fairly early on. Finance overlaps with the neo-reactionary movement's disdain for elite institutions, although they are themselves an elite institution. Revolutions are always replaced oftentimes with something worse. Interest in an alternative, uncensorable system. That's what you're seeing with X and with Grok, an uncensored system, right? That's why Elon Musk said that he bought Twitter and made it X, because there was too much censorship. That next we get to Mark Zuckerberg. Well, Facebook said, hey, we're not gonna suppress people anymore. We're not gonna. That was the old regime that we were answering to. These guys want it just out there. So I'm not seeing those fact checking things and all on Facebook. People are still getting in jail and banned and stuff, but
yeah, that especially the fact checking thing, that really took a back seat to a lot of stuff. And that's I told you about that, and that's one thing too about Grok that I really like, for the people that like the fact check thing. All you have to do is say, like, if somebody if I was put a post out there on X and I said, and put some stat out there, and you're like, that can't be right. All you have to do is go at Grok, is this right? And then boom, it'll bring the information up and it will post it on that post. And so it's right there. And there's no like agenda behind it. It just basically tells you, here are the facts behind it. Do these, and then it lets you decide, do these match up to what that person's claiming and what is actually out there? So now you don't have these arbitrary, which all of us agreed, like on Facebook, come on, these are not fact checkers, because it's like they clearly didn't read the thing. All it did is it was somebody that either didn't like it or did something like that, and then put a fact check on there that didn't even associate with the post at all.
Right. And I have to say, as a research tool, I do think AI is pretty good. You start to get into generative AI, and there's all these lawsuits out there, and it's been proven that they have stolen. We have some book publishers in the audience tonight, and works that they have published by authors that are, their authors under contract are part of Zuckerberg's, thing. So they're making the case in court. Of course, if you can't argue the facts, argue the law or whatever, or the vice versa. And they're saying, look, none of this has value. Why the hell should we pay for it? It has no value as a learning tool, which it's kind of a book that's meant as a teaching tool. To say it has no value as a teaching tool is a little spurious, but we don't have hours and hours to do this. So Zuckerberg, Meta CEO, the metaverse, create a new immersive governance structure with a meta rule digital state. Now, I don't think guys like Thiel and his crew are going to let Mark Zuckerberg be in charge of anything to, like, I think it'll be another, like, if anybody's in the Oculus world, VR chat. I think that's what the metaverse will be, where anything goes. You can have your avatars, but I think Zuckerberg is kidding himself if he thinks he's going to be a major player on that level. More likely,
I think it. No, I was gonna say, I think it but on his, like that Meta AI, I think that actually is potentially a threat for artists.
It definitely is. Generative AI absolutely is.
Because right now, if you just go on that Meta AI and you say imagine, you could say imagine, Craig and Joey's Sinister Mysteries. And like I said, it's going to come up with an image, and all you have to do is just say reimagine. And it just keeps giving you image after image after image. And so eventually, like I said, this is like, especially like for metas, I think they're more of a threat on the art side than they are really on the other thing. I think just anybody that's a visual artist, that's going to be, that's one of your prime threats.
It already is. Photographers and graphic artists are down 25% from last year. So it's taking away, which is why they're so rightly up in arms. It's very, after the strikes and all, Joe put up the thing that there was a BBC headline that the Academy will consider AI products. I think that's going to take a long time, because there are artists that don't want to be, put out of jobs. TV writers are already being put out of jobs. So, but anyway, moving on. Meta centralized control over virtual life. Again, that's where you put the poor people in these VR loops, and its power over billions reflect the neo-reactionary theme of private sovereign platforms. But I really think it's more diversion, education, not administrative. He's indirectly aligned via the creation of virtual realms governed by the technocratic elites. So if you look at that, it's sort of like, yeah, okay, he made this thing and everybody got trained on it. Really, we were, MySpace was the original thing that everybody was trained on, but really it was Facebook and the millennials, Gen Z, what I call them, Gen AA now. And there's huge pushback, Craig. They really want age restrictions on Facebook, and Zuckerberg is really pushing hard against it because you got to train the AA's. You got to train Gen AA, and you got to get them to be early adopters because they probably think the millennials are a little on the fence, but most of them are okay with it. Gen Z, they're like all in. They were born like you took a USB, plugged it into their belly button, and it gave you their AppGuard test.
Well,
right? They were just poured into this.
Yeah, because just a lot of stuff with social media, especially. I think that's one of the reasons why we're kind of in the situation that we are now in, is that people can't cope because everybody's so used to, well, I just scroll or I block, and they don't have to. They've lost that ability to cope with things, how to deal with stuff. Because before, you would actually have to deal with an issue. You couldn't just storm off. You couldn't just block. I'm not dealing with this. You actually had to, because you had to actually engage with these people. You couldn't just shut yourself off from society. Well, now a lot of stuff, and I think that's part of the thing that's going on with a lot of these things is just people. It's like attention span of goldfish.
Well, there's
doom
that.
scrolling.
Right. There's definitely that. And, for years, for over a decade, I did bully education workshops. The game completely changed with social media, with the anonymity, with not being face to face with someone. So you could shoot them a text and break up with them, or you could post somebody's picture, right? Facebook in its earliest iteration was on whatever college campus Zuckerberg was on. Like, is it this girl or is it this girl? That's what it started at. A guy who couldn't get a date, was bitter about women, creates this site where you can basically judge, these women. So Larry Ellison, Oracle co-founder, his son is, Skydance Media is buying Paramount. There was talk before Project Stargate or Stargate Project that Larry Ellison was going to run Paramount Studios when the deal is done. But now, of course, he's in with Project Stargate. And Project Stargate, Craig, we did a whole episode on that in DeepSeek. That suddenly makes sense. $500 billion to build the infrastructure to run these digital cities, right? Because they're saying ChatGPT, right? Like, they talk about how much electricity it takes, how much power it takes to run these things. ChatGPT came out and said we are spending tens of millions of dollars a year on electricity simply because people are saying please and thank you to ChatGPT, which I refuse to do. I don't say please. I don't say thank you. That's how expensive, when you generate one of those images, right, that you're talking about, it's using so much power.
Because right now, what I said, Meta AI, imagine Joey and Craig, Sinister Mysteries. That's what that picture is right now.
Well,
that I shared. That's what Meta AI imagined from me just putting imagine Craig and Joey, Sinister Mysteries.
Huh.
And that's why I said that's where graphic artists and stuff. That's why it's such a threat, is because in less than 5 seconds, that's what was created.
Right, which is comic book graphic novel quality, and it also makes us look like hipster douchebags, so it doesn't know us at all. Looks like the Hardy Boys. No, I see trust fund hipster douchebag.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. It's like I tell people, it's like, so all you have to do is then just you go in and just you tweak it, and that's why I said that's where some of the dangers in this thing is because at some point now I don't have to hire somebody to do this thing, and that's kind of where. And where I'm going with this part is this is where it kind of falls into the butterfly revolution, is because this is part of the thing, is you're going to have this group, you're going to have this mass population that's going to be left out. And so now what do we do with them? Well, these become the ones that help propel this new thing into fruition, because you have to overthrow the existing. Well, this goes back to the Mao. This comes back to the thing where the people that have no future, they're struggling. Well, now you have your charismatic leader that can come in and get those people that are disillusioned, that are left out. And that's that's kind of where some of the fear of this stuff is.
Yeah. And that's why I think they're going to have their hardest time, because everything is so fractured. I can't see somebody coming in that's going to pull everyone together, and unless it's done through some kind of force. So Ellison works closely with surveillance and military contractors reflecting neo-cameralist ideas. Governments as service providers accountable to elite shareholders. Like, they just come right out and say it because they're the guys, and they're like, what the hell are you going to do about it? Right? The bully comes on the playground, goes, I'm way taller than you guys. I'm way stronger than you guys. And my dad beating the crap out of me all the time. I've learned how to fight. So I am clearly superior. So take your shot. Palmer Luckey, founder of Oculus, moves on to Anduril, right? Which I always bring up. Screw you. This is Anduril, right?
Yeah.
But it's AI-driven military weaponry, right? So, of course, that's a close alignment with Larry Ellison. AI-powered border surveillance, autonomous warfare tech. Let the tech take care of it. Let the tech decide who to shoot and all that kind of stuff. Neo-reactionaryism has an emphasis on order, borders, technological sovereignty. So a guy who's doing border surveillance, that fits hand in glove. And then also Anduril's role as a private defense firm aligns with neo-cameralist privatized security ideals. What does that mean? Eisenhower called it the military-industrial complex. I call it the comic, the corporate oligarchy, military media industrial intelligence complex. This is a good time, Craig, to bring up through the work of like Whitney Webb and people like that the CIA funded all of these guys early on through In-Q-Tel. Guys, look that up, In-Q-Tel. The CIA has so much money that they have a venture capitalist arm.
Yeah. You just talked about Anduril. I just post up here. Look at what their headline is on their own webpage. I thought it was really fitting. To rebuild the arsenal of democracy.
Yeah, there you go. Raises. Yeah. Who are the investors?
Yeah, but just the fact that they use the word the arsenal of democracy, and that's one of the things about this butterfly revolution is that it deals with the break, taking from that democracy into this new era, and that's so it's there you go. I mean, like in real time. Brian Armstrong is the Coinbase CEO. Crypto-libertarianism, government minimalism. So the growth of it seems to be this scale thing, whereas digital currency, digital ID, digital city states, digital, AI assisted, AI partnership, AI, Craig, as you're talking about. If that does come to pass, then it's AI led. That's more Eric Schmidt from Google and Kissinger's vision. Brian Armstrong talks about mission-driven tech companies over social democracy. Order, not moralism. Like they say it. You got to give them credit because they're just freaking saying it. Why? Because they believe it. And so they're saying it. Mark Andreessen Horowitz, co-founder, criticizes democracy's inefficiency. We believe in accelerationism and growth. That goes back to that whole, Trump is going to be president. Now the fetters come off. Now it's accelerationism. It's growth. It makes me think of, Craig, and somebody sent me something. This was my response. Oh, you know how everybody who talks about chemtrails is like a tinfoil hat Looney Tune? Well, now it's come out. Britain is about to adopt a thing where they're going to seed clouds. They're going to put chemicals in the air to try to diminish the power of the sun for climate change. And then there's this other company that you can pay them and they'll put X amount of chemical
into the atmosphere, give you credit for saving the planet, and it's basically cloud seeding and chemtrailing. So that is really interesting. And what I said is it reminds me of Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park. Before you know what you have, you move forward with it. And that's what these guys want. They don't want you and I, anybody in our audience or anybody else, to consider the pros and cons. It's like, oh, I can make the book cover. Oh, I can make what Joey and Craig look like in the graphic arts world. When Meta Imagine launched, it was probably about 6 or 8 months ago. There's a picture that I put on the internet all the time of me. It's my steampunk character. It's me in a top hat and goggles, and I'm kind of looking at the screen. So I basically described that to Meta, and they basically gave me a cartoonized version of my picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really stunning. So let's see. We're almost to the good part, dude. So Mark Andreessen invested in Urbit, which was Yarvin's sovereign computing project. And Andreessen's Techno-Optimist Manifesto reflects core Dark Enlightenment principles. So he's even writing about it. Elite rule, tradition as obsolete. That's why it's the Dark Enlightenment. All this tradition of democracy and Rousseau and all these guys, this experiment failed. And it's time to move on, people. And we're the ones to take you through. Progress as sacred. Joe Rogan talks about that quite a lot. He's like, humans are completely driven, iPhone, 28, like always improve. So progress then becomes the God. So again, if you're not an adopter, you're sort of an enemy of the digital state. I think that gets into social credit scores where I'm not going to be able to eat.
I really, to me, this was almost like a reimagining of communism.
You've used communist examples. I've noticed that throughout the show.
Yeah, because it's just the way it is because it views democratic systems as dysfunctional, and what it's like where they process it out as the equal the egalitarianism the equal outcomes which never works, and this basically wants to create a system that on paper it's because the one that currently isn't accountable to you and it wants to do this, but the system is less accountable than the one they're replacing. Yeah, which is what communism does. It's like we're gonna fix this for the little guy, and it inevitably always ends up with the elite, aristocrat that have the control, and everybody else suffers. Yeah, even though it was like in the system prior, with the problems, it still isn't as bad as the new one, and that's what I said. It's, as I was coming down, I felt like this was like almost like a modern Marx, take, for me.
Yeah, and I think and that's interesting because it's so interesting. They would probably disagree with you, which would probably even make you more right, if that makes sense. They probably disagree with you, but they push back on anything with critical in the title. Critical race theory, critical this studies, critical terrorism studies. It's appended in front of everything. And there's a school of thought that says, no, this is basically camouflage communism is their response. So these guys' response is if it has critical in the title, this is communism. So again, I think the fact that they would disagree with you would make you more right. I just want to be clear on that. I'm agreeing with you. I think that so I got one more guy and then we get into what this starts to look like. David Sachs, founding chief operations officer of PayPal. So you got the whole PayPal cabal in this thing. He's a strong Yarvin supporter, critic of democracy. Like these guys come right out and say democracy sucks. Competition is for losers. Of course, mainstream media, the administrative state, amplifier of post-democracy narratives in techno-political discourse. So David Sachs is one of the guys who's putting the information out there. And Thiel has his guys, Brent Weinstein and his brother Eric, Jesse Marcel, all these guys that I've been telling you guys about for a really, really long time. You need these amplifiers. You have the disruptors and the provocateurs. You have the financiers, and then you have the amplifiers. So what's his name? Srinivazan, he's an amplifier. Yarvin kind of was amping his own stuff. So some of this is in process. You go through it fast. Praxis, who Teal is invested in, all these guys have invested in. Praxis, building a new city, the next America. This was a startup founded in 2019, so it's been around for about 6 years, by Dryden Brown and Charlie Callanan, Callinan, for those of you doing your own research at home. They built this. So the idea is practice is the next America. You build a city-state online first. Now, I know a guy. He's building one of these. Brent Hunter, World Community Network. It's out there. It's public. He's been on the show twice. I'm going to have him as a guest probably in several months to talk about his version, the World Community Network. Is this? So there are other people, independent people, not the SilVal boys, who are trying to do this. So it exists. And his phases are just kind of like this. Build a city-state online first. Now, he doesn't have the capital, nor is it part of his vision to do this. Then migrate to acquired land. So the billionaires buying up all this land. So you have all these people who are your digital community. And then you say, oh no, we're gonna do it 3D, real time, crypto city, which will embody all the principles of everything we've been talking about for the last hour. Peter Thiel is invested. Balaji Srinivasan is invested. Sam Altman, this is where his name comes up. And it's funded, this Praxis idea that they're working on, by Pronomos Capital, led by Patry Friedman. Charles Joe, I think you're going to love this. Patry Friedman, who leads Pronomos Capital, is the grandson of economist Milton Friedman. That's like the nephew of Freud inventing public relations and marketing, Edward Bernays. That's just that's interesting, these lineages. So that's the startup mechanism for what they call these charter cities, these digital societies, and all the guys that I talked about. Now, what is Pronomos? Pronomos is the intelligent satyr herald of Dionysus, the god of wine, the god of song, the god of theater. I think that's an interesting code there. And his worshipers would get so drunk and high and impassioned and nuts that they would tear each other apart. So
yeah, Charles, you're right. Digital serfdom.
Yeah, it's Joe Redmiles and I talk about this quite a bit. It's the old coal camps, right? So company script. So you work for Rockefeller's coal camp. You're not paid in money. You're paid in script. The script can only be used at the company store. So I work for the company. They have the store. I can only buy my stuff at the store. So I'm basically giving the money back to the corporation. So it's a poverty cycle. And also, I can't use my script anywhere. So Craig, if we wanted to, we could pocket all our money, convert it all to cash or gold or whatever, and we could run away to another country that was maybe more pleasant. You can't do that. So yeah, digital serfdom and company, coal company script stores. Because even this one that Brent is doing, it has its own coin, and you own the coin by how you engage with the community service you do, what you do as an artist, what you do as an engineer. And then there's a blockchain ledger book where you are given this coin. But I can't go into 7-Eleven and spend that coin. I can't pay my rent to my neighbor with that coin. So it's it's interesting. So what did Joe say here? One of them owns 98% of one of the Hawaiian lines. I forget who, one of the Oracle guys, I think. So that would be either Larry Ellison or his son, probably Larry, though. And wasn't Zuckerberg and maybe
Zuckerberg has like a
Gates?
large, yeah, he has a large place there.
Yeah, and Gates was buying up all kinds of land during COVID. And Joe says, yeah, company store model, and they rig it so the workers don't get ahead. Right, because there's no real money. Where are you going to go? And even if you go to work for another coal company, they got their own script. And that really reminds me of Microsoft.
Larry Ellison.
Yeah, Larry Ellison. That's what I thought.
It's like Lanai. He owns nearly 98% of an island on Lanai.
Yeah, which, hey, talk about buy-in, Craig. Want to come live on my island in Hawaii?
Yeah, but it's the fact that he was able to buy that big of a, one of the islands in Hawaii too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, Larry. Yeah. Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his son, Skydance, that's the company that produced Top Gun Maverick and like the last, I think 5, maybe 6 of the Mission Impossible movies. And they have a huge gaming empire. Like, and Dad's money kind of seeded all that. Charles says, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Is that the island, Craig?
That's another one of the islands. I think he was guessing on that one. It was like Lanai. Okay. I'm not sure who owns the property on that one.
Yeah. So let's go through the 7. Let's go through the 7 steps, dude, and see where audience who can chime in too. First one is the campaign of autocracy. Destroy an unworkable system. They call it DOGE, right? The Department of Government Efficiency. We've alluded to that. Curtis Yarvin calls it rage. Wonder why they didn't use that, Craig. Rage, retire all government employees. So that's the first one, a campaign of autocracy where just a few people should be in charge and we got too many other people making decisions. 2 is connected, purge the bureaucracy. Where do you think we're at with that?
I think, this is where it's hard. This is where most anything where it goes from the theoretical into the realist thing. Because one thing is like, especially where people say, whenever you have the naysayers, they'll say stuff like this, I don't see this happening. Well, it's really easy when you have something that's like our federal government that's bloated. We all know this. I mean, there's nobody could argue the fact that we have way too many people that are under, the taxpayer, dime. So it's real easy for anybody to go, it's like, yeah, we need to cut this thing. But like I said, you could see based off of the people that are involved in this, you could see now where it really could have something behind, that there might be a little bit more of a motive behind something like DOGE or these things, to where there's a reason why they're going after certain sectors, first, the order that they're going after things instead of just across the board, telling every single department, you got to cut 25%, go. Like I said, it's like they're going systematically, but that's, so that's where it's like, I don't see anything nefarious, like where everybody claims like they're trying to steal this information, because once again, we're talking with people that are the uber wealthy. They don't need my social security number. That's not going to get, what's Musk going to do with my little checking account? That doesn't even pay for, for what he's going to do today. Right. So why would he need, there's nothing right there. It's just one of those, when they go through, like with this thing, it's the reason why you have to focus on these things is because this is one of the things too. When you eliminate some of these people, now they don't have anything. So now it's easy to steer them towards, well, here, let's move towards this goal, and you're like, well, yeah, I got to do something, so I think you can set up that's where the purging of these things, because now these people have, well, I want what I had back. Well, hey, I can bring you along with this, with this new revolution. And I think that's kind of where I see with some of these.
And they are targeting, like I just saw a headline just before we went live, that they're moving some civil rights lawyers to other places in the Department of Justice. They did get rid of, people who who had prosecuted January 6th. They got rid of certain people in the military. They even removed the guy who was the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, very, very powerful, from Ohio. They just got rid of him. And I think that was kind of to strike a deal with, I've mentioned this before, with Tim Burchett, because they were trying to get him out. They were trying to get him out. So those are the things to watch. Those are the things that I'm watching. Like, who are they getting rid of and where? Number 3 is ignore the courts. Possibly declaring a state of emergency. We do have that with the southern border, right? And that led to people going out of their minds last Sunday. They're going to declare martial law. No, the Insurrection Act of 1807 is different than martial law. But so they did declare a state of emergency in one place. Override the SC. I don't know. Roberts and Gorsuch came in with the blue team just yesterday on some immigration stuff. So I don't think that they have the courts under control yet. I really don't. What's your feeling on that?
No, I don't. Yeah, they don't have, because it's like the rule of law still has some effect. But I think part of, like I said, with a revolution, you've got to establish problems to create an uproar to get rid of it. And I think we're seeing that in a way too, with where it doesn't matter who's in office, but when you have for anybody who knows separations of powers, the court is not the legislative body in any way.
Right.
They can't. Their place is not to ever dictate what should happen. Their goal is to, like, okay, this happened. Does this coincide with known, with law? Is this lawful? It's not up to them to determine whether or not they feel it's lawful. No. They have to, somebody like you or me has to bring this to the court and say, this is where we see a problem. And they go, okay, here it is. Judges just go, like you're seeing right now, where they're just like, no, we can't do this. Well, that's not your purview. That's the legislature. That's how that's supposed to go. And I think we could see with where it's going, you could see such a violent roller coaster with judges basically, coming up with their own rulings just out of the blue. I think that could cause, I could see where this one, it would be easy enough for somebody, whether it's current administration, the next administration, whoever, to go in. It's like that thing for that seizure. It was like, this is out of control, pop, and then they take control. And that's, I think out of all of the things, I think the court system is the one that's probably for me is the closest one to this idea coming to fruition on. Is that something that there's going to be something in the court system that will cause that? This will be the one that I think that, to me, is the most vulnerable.
Interesting. Number 6 is the most vulnerable to me. Number 6 is the most vulnerable to me. That's where I'm seeing it, like, really being pushed, and this will help connect some of the dots. But no, I definitely think that that's there. And on the federal judge level, like, federal judges don't have the authority to do this. They've stepped over their bounds here.
Mm-hmm.
So they really are. They're working on that federal court system, and we'll see what the backlash is against Gorsuch and Roberts. Like, Roberts was the guy who broke the tie on the Congress regulating commerce that allowed Obamacare to happen. So Roberts kind of, and then he went to an island in the Caribbean and, like, hid out for 6 weeks after he did it. So Roberts is sort of that loose gun, and he's the chief, which is interesting. Co-opt Congress. I do not believe that they've co-opted Congress.
No.
And I think that Craig, I think
individuals, yes, but as a body, no. Yeah.
And not all of the Republican Party either, because I've come to, this is where I think I sleep easier at night. These guys and gals love this job. It is I sound like Bernie. They love this job.
Yep.
We got good health care. We don't work that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And they want to get reelected. This is their career. That's what they do. They get insider information about the stock market, right? If you look at the numbers of pre-Congress, now I'm in Congress, and you see what they get paid, their financial gurus are doing an outstanding job of taking their congressional pay whatever it is, $140,000 a year, or whatever.
Yeah, because
and turning it into millions of dollars.
Well, you can see that, you know, on both sides. You can see that list of the ones that have enriched themselves off this thing. It's because they're playing ball with, you know, these technocrats, you know, that are coming in. And I think that's one of the things that you're seeing. Like I said, I think it's individuals throughout the halls that are believers in, you know, like, hey, this is kind of where we're going. I want to be part of this. But you have the other ones that are still like, I'm not on board.
Right.
And those, I would say that one's probably still a long ways out before that would swing, you know, either way on this.
Right. And that's, you know, that's war powers, that's this and that. And, you know, you can only do so much with executive orders. You know, because
you don't codify it in Congress, then, you know, it's just the next one just comes with their pen and erases it all away.
And Congress sets the budget. Yeah, there still are. I think as we move closer to the midterms, that's where we're really going to watch. And we're still a pretty long ways out from that.
There's your another word for the day: codify. And there.
Oh, did I say that?
No, that's what I said. It's got to be codified in Congress. So I said, there's your word for the day, everybody: codify.
You got a lot of good ones. You got egalitarianism, and we're throwing this neo-reactionary, and it's just these guys like the words. Centralize police and consolidate governments. I'm not really seeing that one too much either.
Yeah, no.
But they were talking a lot about defund the police, defund the police, defund the police.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to eliminate the enforcement, you know, because that's a way. It's like you can't have the thing, you know. An enforcement arm is the one that'll crush it, you know, if it's not on board. And so if you get, that's what they were hoping for, but it's still, that's why I said, we're not far enough along. It's on, you know, they want it to be, but it's like, there's just too much.
Right.
That's holding it back.
It's really good news. So if they're working on, you know, don't let a good crisis go to waste. Who was it? Lawrence Rockefeller, I think all the way back in the days of Bush 1, we're just one major crisis away from the New World Order. So it's good news, bad news. Like, these guys aren't going to give up. They're not going to give up. So 6 is the one that I think is really the most vulnerable now. And keep in mind that I'm an academic editor, and the papers are just coming across my desk every day. I'm spending, you know, 5, 6 hours, 7 hours with this material. Shut down legacy media and academic institutions. So this idea that colleges are mostly liberal, they're indoctrinating kids. Harvard is in a big fight with Trump. Columbia rolled over for Trump, Columbia University. You know, the DEI programs, your state, Ron DeSantis was really at the forefront of that. Even at a fairly small college that I believe was private, he sort of stepped in. And so one of Trump's executive orders yesterday was accreditation tied to woke programs. So this is where I'm really seeing, Craig. And of course, you know, when you say, oh, that's fake news, or they're bought and sold, or, oh, they're the king of fake news, that's been going on now for like 8 years or so. But if you take that backwards, my friend, remember when we did the episode on Bohemian Grove? Once Reagan was no longer president, that January, he was the guest speaker at Bohemian Grove. And he said, guys, we got a huge problem, and it's the media. So this has been in process. This has been in process for a really, really long time. And then number 7, this is also in process. Turn out your people or your tribe. So MAGA is a movement, and it's a very proud movement. And so turn out your tribe, your people, the othering, not them. When you say, oh, no, they're trying to hurt us, right? Like, so after 9/11, Bush goes like, either you're with us or you're against us. So that becomes a real decision moment, right? And I think that's how they're going to try to pull people into AI, Craig. Like I said, you know,
that's been a long time in the works too. It's where it's that you've got to divide, you know, it's the divide and conquer thing. It's like you have to establish. I mean, you're really seeing it, you know, you're really seeing the fruition of their work, I think, really right now too. It's just there's so many people that they have their team jersey on, and they refuse to see or talk or engage with anybody that doesn't wear the same jersey, the same opinion as them. If you don't, block. I'm not talking to you. You're dead to me. And that's the exact thing that they wanted. They don't want people to be in the space like what we're on and just have normal conversations, have front to front, just serious, you may not like the topics, but you've got to have conversations. You have to talk about these things. Doesn't mean that by the end of the day that we're both going to be in agreement on the same thing. I mean, it's just, go back to AI. We're both not on the same page in this thing. Well, guess what? We don't immediately say, I'm done with that guy. Screw him.
Right.
He doesn't agree with me. That's the problem. That's what I think that is actually something that they've already succeeded in. The tribal thing has already happened. We're in tribes.
Yeah,
we're literally in tribes. If you're not part of my tribe, you're dead to me. I'm going to, hyperbole, it's not real. We have to kill the other tribes. I mean, that's basically death to the other tribes because you are not part of my tribe and I want nothing to do with you. And I think they've succeeded.
Yeah, because doesn't that precede the Enlightenment? Feudal states, city-states, Italy, a group of city-states that all war.
That's exactly what
you get. Machiavelli come up, right? The prince, and go squash these fuckers, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like if they don't, and I think that's one where it's like I don't even think that I think we're already past that part. I think that out of the stages, that one's already been a success. They have divided they have divided and conquered, but there are still the few of us who are like, wait, stop, don't go, stay, talk, engage. It's just, and unfortunately, we're demonized. We're cast out and stuff because there's just people that unfortunately can't get past that jersey. I don't. It's one of those things. It's hard. I mean, like I said, I mean, if somebody has another opinion, dude, bring it on. Let's talk. I'm not going to walk away upset. Yeah.
How do you do that though? How do you achieve it? You raise the stakes so high that people can't afford to emotionally, intellectually, so on and so forth. They really don't feel like they can afford. There's a genuinism there. But yeah, I mean, 9/11, I said it, confrontation is the new communication.
Yeah, you just said the word. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's happened in the last probably in the last couple of decades, is the embracement of your emotions are what matter. It's the emotion, how you feel, your truth, all the stuff is what is most important, when in reality, there's no your truth. There's truth. There's your how you feel about that truth. But it's one of those things. There's no alternate. We're not a multiverse here. We're not all living. It's like I have my reality, you have yours. We're all just kind of walking around in our little bubbles. No, we just have to think. And what it's forced people, and I've always told people this: decisions made out of emotion are rarely the correct answer. Right. They are usually emotional decisions are usually the wrong one. And anybody that is business, whatever, if you do something out of emotion, it's usually the wrong decision. That's right.
And I agree with that. And I even teach that as an actor, as a writer, as a director. Emotion is a byproduct. Like writers and directors are like, what is the emotion that you feel? I don't give a shit about the emotion. I want stuff and I need stuff. And pursuing my want or my need, paying my bills, a safe retirement, health insurance, health care, SSI, VA benefits, Social Security. I need that. And it is being threatened to be taken away from me. The byproduct of that is emotion. So that's why I say these people are genuine. People are genuine. But I was talking to somebody yesterday and he said, man, it's screaming into an echo chamber and it doesn't do any good. So, but people aren't banding together. Like, it's the weirdest thing. You have 8.5 billion people in the world, and you got like 60 maybe decision makers, probably less at this point, 20, 30 decision makers. The mathematics doesn't make any sense. But there's this lockdown. You know what I'm saying?
Well, exactly. But that's what we were just talking about. That's where especially those 60 decision makers, they're not making decisions out of emotion. They
Oh
have
no.
they have a hyper focus. They know what they're doing. They don't care. They're
Mhm.
doing this thing regardless if you like it or not. And that's where I said I think they've been so successful, especially with this agenda. That's where you see it, is because they've taught so many people to function out of emotion instead of out of critical thinking,
Right.
out of actually logical. Like I said, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean you have to agree with somebody. It just means that if you could actually sit down, just have it, or you've seen it, and how many times, how many people can't have a rational discussion anymore?
Right.
There's this, I mean, they fly off it's rage. Everybody's been,
Yeah.
especially these last couple of generations, they have been encouraged to express this rage, where like our generation, it's like, you squash that sucker down, you figure out how to function in society.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, but I have this. No, what we were told is our opinion didn't matter much. It's just, but these last couple of generations are like, oh no, everything that you think and feel is the most important thing. And I think that's part of the problem now, is that's what
Right.
everybody feels there is the center of the universe. And it's like,
Right.
I'm sorry, that's
Yeah,
that's
no,
not the
everybody,
case.
no, everybody has Warhol's 15 minutes of fame. Social media is set up for you to immediately express your opinion. So social media doesn't say we're going to hold this comment for 5 minutes. You go off and think about it, come
Yep.
back. No, it's immediate. It's immediate, and it goes out into the world. And if you say the right thing with the right keywords at the right time, it will blow up huge. So that's new. We didn't have that when we were kids. And yeah, maybe they told us just like, you're gonna get punched in the face once in a while, deal with it.
Yeah.
That's the world.
You're going to get socked in the stomach, and you just got to
Yeah,
get up and just realize, okay,
right,
I'm not going to say that again.
right. And sort of the
It's
idea
like,
that, yeah, your family loves you. Yeah, your friends are mostly there for you, but they're dealing with their own shit. But when you go out into the world, nobody cares. That's what I
no,
tried to teach my kids. Like, guys, I love you. I would do mostly anything for you. They don't give a crap. They don't care if you achieve your dreams. They don't care if you're safe. They don't care, right? So I think there's that, and then there's this idea of scarcity that comes with, right? Like, I learned something very simple, Craig. You don't become these billionaires, right? Bernie Sanders said this. He said Vanguard, State Street, and BlackRock are majority shareholders in 85% of the corporations.
yep,
And the three richest guys, Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos, have the same amount of wealth as the lower 175 million people in this country. Now, where were those three guys sitting on Inauguration Day?
right behind the president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of blatant consolidation, right? What is another name for money? Currency. Currency flows.
Mhm.
That's how a healthy democracy, a democracy capitalism works. When you start pulling large amounts out of the system, it no longer works. And then that creates the scarcity. So I don't know. We're getting super philosophical here, but we can get in the ring with these guys philosophically. I think we can.
Oh yeah, no, said that's what for all those that have stuck with it. I said I appreciate, and that's one of those things that I like about this thing is we have the mystery. Now we're talking this thing, and this is what's important, is to have this dialogue.
Yeah.
At the end of the thing, whether you agree with us or not, you think you think Craig's crazy. It's like,
Yeah.
I go, one, awesome. You were here. We were having a conversation. You're commenting, which is fantastic. That's what we need to have. We need to have conversations. We got to quit just walking away. I'm never talking to people again. We just need to come in and have, because one of the things, is this the most fun topic? Because it's scary to think about it. No, but if you don't talk about it, it's like it just sits there as this lurking demon just hanging over everything, and it's not going away. Why not embrace what's actually out there, talk about it, and just get, then you're on your way. That's what I said. That's what I like.
Yeah.
I said to everybody, like Charles has had some awesome comments in there. Joe's Red
Yeah.
Mile, he's had some awesome comments.
My brother
Jay,
showed up. That was very cool.
Chris, I just said I'm enjoying this, and that's what's great.
And you and I have different takes on how far along AI is, and it
Mhm.
didn't blow up the show.
No. And at the end of the show, we're going to say, brother, have an awesome night. We can't, look forward to the next time.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what's
I got to get out of this hot house.
That's what we do. That's what
I
we
just
do.
got one more. Yeah, I just got one more data point, and then I want to tell people what we're doing the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
September 2024, there was the Reboot Conference. That's what it's called, the Reboot Conference. So nice tech, computers, reboot, start again, right? The Great Reset, another word, the Reboot Conference. And the secret speaker, kind of like Reagan at Bohemian in all those years ago, the secret speaker was Kevin Roberts, who's the head of the Heritage Foundation.
Mhm.
And it was called Tech and the American Republic. So it's out there, guys. You can find it. Now, Craig and I next week, and then he's going to go visit family on the far coast. So we're taking a week off, and then we'll come back. But we're going to look at the Treaty of Versailles, which was the agreements and the world order arrangement, League of Nations, all that kind of stuff that came out of World War I, the crippling of Germany, the taking away of their patents, the crippling of their army, which gave rise to World War II. We have to talk about, I think, the financial players that constellated around this, the Morgans and the Rockefellers. And then, so the 15th, when Craig gets back, we are going to do the Marshall Plan. And that was Charles, I believe, suggested that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of those things. Like, if you guys have anything, put it to it. Because, like I said, we definitely would love to talk about it.
Yeah, and the summer we want to have some fun. So if you like the fact and fiction Amityville or the
bring those on,
or the Voynich, like, give us some. We would love fact fiction, like something that's out there and it's being presented mostly as fact, or in the lore it's fact, or paranormal. Of course, I love. I've been doing that a long time. Craig is very articulate about the paranormal. I thought we pretty much crushed Amityville. That was a great episode.
I liked it. Yeah,
and it was very well received.
Yeah, I've heard some great feedback about it. So
yeah, so definitely send us some ideas, because we haven't scheduled anything yet beyond the 15th, because we want to hear from you, and we're also brainstorming. We've taken us very, very current with the politics. So this summer we want to have some fun and pick apart some phonies and do some stuff. So we've kept you guys a long time. The numbers are still real high. Appreciate you guys staying with us. I am in a sauna, where it's like 82 degrees. I don't have the air conditioner up yet. It's an old house, so the air doesn't come up from the central air in the first floor. So I got to get out of this room.
Oh yeah, with the computers, I'm sure like that's a sweat box.
Yeah. But my computer's really behaving, which was good. I was a little worried that the fan was going to keep kicking on. Brother, it's always a pleasure. I am going to load us. Thank you, everybody. And my brother, thanks for joining. We do this every other week, sometimes more. Tune in, join us. And please, you can go, don't go to Facebook anymore, because they're deleting all of the old videos. But you can go to YouTube. Go to the Joey Medea YouTube page. Say your thing, brother.
Don't be sinister, but stay mysterious.
And here we go. Oh, and get us a name.
Yeah.
For our
help us name the puppet. Yeah, come up with it.
Do you have a sinister mystery in mind? Let us know by sending us a DM or comment in the chat. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Till next time, stay mysterious.